Hello, Achim Yekarim. How are you? Bezat Hashem, you had a phenomenal week. Want to give you a Daily Chidush of the day before Shabbat comes in here in about an hour. And this week's Parashat Tazria is we talk about the disease of Tzarat, which is a spiritual disease and a physical disease. Both there's a spots all over the body, but also there's a spiritual pain that's incomprehensible. Something that's the only cure to it is Hashem. There's no cure to it, and there are 11 reasons. Chazal tells us there's 11 reasons of why someone gets this horrendous disease. The commonly known one is when someone says lashon hara. Someone says something about somebody else, even if it's true. And it's negative about them. It's considered lashon hara. That's the foundation. That's the most common reason of why people would get it. And these people that got tzarat would be thrown out of the camp, just like they tried to make someone look unfavorable in the eyes of the public. Hashem makes them unfavorable in the eyes of the public as well by throwing them out of the camp. But that's lashon hara is a drasha I want to talk about another time. There's another reason, another one of the 11 reasons of why someone gets this disease, and that's someone that's a kamtzan, someone that's stingy or cheap. Being cheap is mamash a disease, and such a disease that Hashem detests it. Now there is a Pesach is coming up, and there is a minag of Israel that became alacha that's called kimcha de pischa, which literally means kemach, which is flour for Pesach, which is a minag that the Chazal, that the sages of Am Yisrael kept, and eventually it got to a point where it became halacha. This should not be confused with other minagim that people think are halachot. Most minagim are not halachot. They're not rules or laws in the Torah, but there's a few that became very, very significant and became an actual law in Judaism, and this is one of them. And this law is to give charity to the ger, to the yatom, to the almanah, to the poor. To people that are underprivileged, whether they're someone that's a convert, someone that lost their parents, or someone that lost their spouse, or just in general poor people, but specifically those three during the time right before Pesach, because Pesach has an extraordinary amount of expenses, and it's very, very important to give them tzedakah. Now, what kind of tzedakah, how much tzedakah, and so to give you guys an understanding of how important this is, there's a amazing story by Rabbi Ovadia Yosef where he tells a story of what happened. There was one time this rich Orthodox Jewish guy, so the sins are not only made by secular people, sometimes unfortunately they're also made by religious people who are religious in actions, but not, in as far as, minimal things, but not in regards to emunah and yirat shamayim. So, Rabbi Ovadia, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, goes to his home and asks him to, fulfill this mitzvah of Kimcha de Pischa. Where you tell him, listen, we need money to give to the ger, yatom, and almanah. And the guy says, no, listen, I worked really hard. For my money, let them go work. Yeah, but you have to understand that Hashem mentions these converts, these yatomim, these almanot, many times in the Torah. I believe in regards to the converts, it's 48 times in the Torah it's mentioned about the special protection that they have from Hashem, where Hashem says, I am both their father and their mother. And as a matter of fact, each time it's usually mentioned with the one that's yatom and almanah, the one that lost their parents, or the one that is a widow. So he's saying that when you actually are fulfilling this mitzvah, when you're actually giving tzedakah to these people, Hashem will reward you because you reward his children. On the other hand, if you don't fulfill this, then Hashem is going to put you in a similar situation that they find themselves in. Well, this guy didn't have any yirat shamayim, and he said, no, I'm not interested, and left. Rabbi left, and a day after Pesach, he comes to the rabbi's office crying hysterically. He's like, Kvod Harav, you're never going to believe it. Kvod Harav, you're never going to believe it. Kvod Harav, you're never going to believe it. And eventually, when he got his sense back to himself, the Rav says, what? What happened? He says, Leila Seder was amazingly prepared. We bought fish, we bought meat, we bought wine, we bought all types of wine, we bought everything. Best Seder ever. We didn't spare a penny to make sure the Seder is ready. Before the Seder, my two sons, that, weren't exactly as strong as they should be, but, they were playing cards with each other. And, I came to them like, okay, it's time for the Seder. Like, Abba, wait. Okay, a little while passed, and, I didn't want to get into an argument at the beginning of a holiday. I said, okay, you know what, they're just playing, let them play. Came a little while later. I said, Abba, wait. Third time I've been waiting here for over an hour. I got so upset, I just came there and I took the cards from them. And unfortunately, Kvod Harav, what happened next was to my surprise. My two sons took me physically and threw me out of the house and locked me out. I spent the rest of the night outside, crying my eyes out, begging to come inside and do the Seder. But I did not do the Seder, and all I did was just cry. You were right, Kvod Harav. When you don't watch Hashem's children, Hashem punishes you. And the Rav tells him, actually, what you're saying is exactly one of the 99 curses in Parashat Kitavo, which is one of the sections in the Torah that talks about the curses of those who do not follow Hashem's will, Hashem's commandments. Parashat Kitavo in Deuteronomy 28, verse 31. It talks about that someone will have everything prepared for them, but they will never enjoy even a second of it. They will only look from afar. Being cheap is a disease. My father always says that sometimes there's someone that has such a bad disease of cheapness, of stinginess, that they're scared to go to the bathroom so they don't have to buy food again. It's mamash a disease, and you have to feel bad for people like this. And if we are one of those people, then obviously we have to work on ourselves because Hashem hates it. There's another amazing story from the Magid from Duvna. Magid from Duvna also came to give a drasha, give a lecture about Kimcha de Pischa, how it's time for people to start donating specifically for this cause. It's not your maaser, it's not your traditional tzedakah, it's outside of it. And he gave a serious drasha, told people what needs to happen. And after he finished, he came home and his wife asked him, so how did it go? How did it go? He goes, I succeeded 50%. Succeeded 50%. What kind of success is 50%? You got 50% of the money you were looking for? He goes, no, not exactly. He goes, so what's 50%? He goes, well, 50% of the people were poor, and I convinced all of them to commit and donate. The other 50% were rich. None of them committed. It's only 50% of the people. And this is actually one of the things that we see, unfortunately, many times. It's not all the time, but many times we see people that are, the better off they are financially, the less likely they are to donate. Whereas the people that are less fortunate, have less, are, giving charity. Sometimes they take food out of their own mouth just to give it to somebody. This is mamash a disease. And the reason why this comes, the reason why someone has this disease of being cheap and being stingy, is not because they have less. It's not even necessarily because they have more. It's because of a defective level of connection between them and Hashem. First and foremost, they have such a high desire for money that, just like the Gemara says, you give him 100, he wants 200. You give him 200, he wants 400. Meaning that the more somebody has, the more they desire. This is already in all people that do not have Torah, and even in sometimes people that do have Torah. But the bigger disaster is not that, because that's almost in essence an instinct in everyone. The bigger disaster is the lack of emunah. When someone believes in a God, but not the same God of Israel, not the same God that's in the Torah. They could say it's the same God in the Torah. They could even call him the same name, but it's not the same God. Why is it not the same God? Because they believe that Hashem created the heaven and the earth and everything else except parnasah, except money. No, when it comes to money, their minds say, no, I have to help Hashem. This is complete nonsense. So what happens to those people? They restrict Hashem. They say that Hashem can't give them enough, so they have to help Hashem, almost to the point where they're scared to spend their money because they don't think that Hashem will give them again. They don't think that Hashem has enough to give them even more. And this is mamash a very, very big problem, not only of emunah, where they don't obviously have faith in Hashem, but it's mamash not believing in the same Hashem. Because as we talked about in the previous Chidushim, the God of Israel is unlimited. The God of Israel actually already wrote and told us in Mount Sinai that the money that He gives you as far as Parnassah is 100% from Him. And the money that you're going to spend on tzedakah and mitzvot is not part of the Parnassah He's going to give you. Meaning that if Hashem is saying that you're going to get, let's say, $50,000 for the year, that $50,000 is just for your regular Parnassah. If you end up giving Parnassah, you end up giving charity, that whatever your expenses are, but they're not included as part of that $50,000. Meaning that if you give $5,000 or $10,000 in tzedakah, Hashem is going to give you that on top of the $50,000 that He gave you. So obviously, anyone that has serious emunah is going to give as much as they can. Obviously, you're not allowed. There's a maximum of what you're allowed to give. But which Judaism is the only religion that has such a thing. The other religions tell you to go homeless and just give everything you have. No, Judaism has a maximum for standard people. You have to give the regular traditional tzedakah, and then you have a ma'asel, which is 10%. But for someone that's rich, someone that, let's say, a multi-millionaire, there's no limit to how much they give. As a matter of fact, they're obligated to give much more. Meaning that if someone has $100 million, they made $100 million in a year. If they give $10 million maaser, they have not fulfilled the mitzvah. Why have they not fulfilled the mitzvah? It says maaser, it says 10%, give a tithe. Why is someone that made $100 million did not fulfill the mitzvah? Because he still has $90 million. No one needs $90 million to live, especially while you have homeless people and people that are poor and yeshivot that are barely surviving, and you have all of these major organizations that are trying to publicize Torah. They're barely surviving on a non-existent budget while you have $90 million. What do you need $90 million for? To buy more shares of Apple? The source for that is the story of Nagdimon ben Gurion. Nagdimon ben Gurion in Masechet Ta'anit, Gemara Masechet Ta'anit says Nagdimon ben Gurion was one of 3 people that fulfilled the mitzvah of tzedakah in such a huge level that he was one of 3 people that financed the entire nation. Mamash financed the entire nation when they were in need. So much so that when there was a pilgrimage every year where the tzaddikim would all come to Yerushalayim, and one year he had to make sure that there's enough water. So he went to a goy and he told him, "Listen, I need to make sure there's enough water. You have 12 walls of water. Give me the 12 walls of water, and I make sure to give them back to you full after this event is done. If the wells are not full of water by the time we're finished, by the time this specific day, I'll fill the entire wells in gold. So instead of water, you have gold." So the guy said, "Okay, sure, no problem." So the time came. It was time to come back, and the guy sees his wells, and they're pretty much empty. He sees this is the morning already of the day they're supposed to give the money back. He comes to Nagdimon ben Gurion, and he says, "Okay, you owe me 12 wells full of gold." He says, No. I have until the end of the day. I have until, sundown. Just see the level of emunah he had. He says, "Okay, you have till sundown." He's laughing at, the guy is laughing at him. But he says, "Okay, fine." Later on in the afternoon, as Nagdimon ben Gurion is praying to Hashem, he gets another message. The guy says, "Okay, it's already the afternoon." He says, "Don't worry, I still have until sundown." He goes back into praying to Hashem. He's saying to Hashem, "Hashem, you said no one in history ever lost of doing a mitzvah. Look at the mitzvah that I did. I made sure that all of your talmidim, all of your tzaddikim have the water that they need. Why do I have to pay for it? You have to pay for it. Your children. I was just a vessel." Hashem made such a rain at that very second to the point where all 12 wells were full. Something that was unbelievable, much a miracle. So then he comes to the guy and says, "Oh, see, they're all full." But the guy says to him, yeah, but they were full right as the sun already came down. You were about 10 minutes late, and honestly, I have a complaint against your God because, yes, he made a miracle, but it was not a perfect miracle. Like Dimon Ben Gurion went back, said, hold on a second. He went back and prayed to Hashem. He said, Hashem, this could be a Chilul Hashem, a desecration of your name. Hashem actually turned back the sun and put it back in the sky. This is the level of how much of a tzaddik Nagdimon Ben Gurion was. Why do I tell you this story? Because later on in the Gemara, we see a story about Nagdimon Ben Gurion's daughter. And she was one day seen by one of the tzaddikim looking through the waste, the poop of the horses, looking for grain. I ask her, what are you doing? She's like, I'm looking for grain, I'm looking for food. Aren't you Nagdimon Ben Gurion's daughter? He's so rich. He goes, no, not anymore. He lost everything. How is this possible? He gave so much tzedakah, so much good. How could it be? And the Gemara says it's because he didn't give enough. Based on his level, he did not give enough. So this is something we need to understand. That there's tzedakah, and there's what we are obligated to do. We have to make sure that we fulfill our obligation. In the Torah, the word for stingy or cheap is kamtzan. Kamtzan has a numerical value of 280. Also, there's a place where the place of judgment for Hashem in Torah is called par dinim, which is in essence the head or the bull or the source of all judgment. Par dinim, the word par, has also a numerical value of 280. Kamtzan has 280 and par has 280. What does this mean? Chazal teaches us from here is that from here we know that when Hashem is cheap, when a person is cheap and is a kamtzan, Hashem brings on. He also is a cheap with him in essence, where instead of judging him favorably, judging him with mercy, he's judging him also with judgment, with the par dinim. So when a person is a kamtzan, he's mamash bringing judgment on himself. Not only is he not fulfilling a mitzvah of giving tzedakah, but on top of that, he's bringing judgment to himself. So Be'ezrat Hashem, these chidushim will get us closer and closer to Hashem by realizing that all of parnasah, all of money, all of everything that we have is from Hashem, and the more confidence and emunah that we have in Hashem, the easier it is to fulfill what He says. Shabbat Shalom Tzadikim. Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll talk after Shabbat.